telling this story is representative of the kind of young experience for people all around the world, showing the world this kind of unauthentic version of yourself to then come home and live the authentic version of yourself, and how dangerous that can be.
Hi, my name is Peter Parker. I have something to tell you that's gonna sound crazy, but it's the truth.
You're the Spider-Man.
Hi Tom.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great, how are you? How are
Yes.
you feeling in Mexico?
I love it here in Mexico, so it's always a real pleasure to be back here.
I'm glad to hear that. So I want to start with something that I like to call anatomy of a spider.
Okay.
Because you've been inhabiting this character for over 10 years, both
Yeah.
Peter and Spider-Man. And I think that the contrast in this movie between the way they move is insane, you know? Like Peter is like unfolding himself, dragging his feet, and he's like trying to be invisible. And on the other hand, Spider-Man, he's got the flow and he just shines whenever he becomes the hero. So I wanted to ask you, like, physically, where do you start to feel that in your body? Like, is it a muscle memory thing? Is it in the way you breathe? Or do you have like a physical anchor that takes you from that broken Peter into the hero?
I think the physicality for Spider-Man is something that has forever been the same. I think one of the reasons why I was lucky enough to get the job is because Peter Parker's, Spider-Man's physicality is very similar to my own. This kind of like messy, floppy, sort of Labrador type way of moving. But then with Peter Parker in this movie, we really wanted to show a strong contrast of the life that he's living in front of the world in comparison to the life that he's living behind closed doors. And that meant really leaning into a more somber version of Peter Parker, you know, a character that really has nothing and no one. You know, in this movie, when we meet him, all of the people in his life that were most important to him don't remember who he is. And it was a really fun thing to play with, to try and find this new version of Peter Parker at this point in his life.
Can you remember where did you start to find that, like that somber personality, like in your body?
Well, so much of it was in the writing. You know, we were really lucky with the writers that we had on this movie. And then Justin Kuritzkis, when he came on, we had a lot of discussions about trying to find this contrast. And kind of naturally in those meetings, when you're talking about the character, you start to kind of embody them in a certain way. So for me, the discovery of the kind of somber Peter Parker happened, you know, months before we arrived on set.
How was that process?
It was really fun. It was a little daunting because it felt very removed from the versions of Peter Parker that we've done in the past. But I think the important thing when you're making these franchise movies, and you're lucky enough to be making them over and over again, it's really important to challenge the audience and give them something that is unique, that is fresh, something that they haven't seen before. And with Spider-Man Brand New Day, that was kind of our driving force. It was like, here are things that we've done in the past. Let's throw those out the window and find new ways to explore the character, to tell the action, and to raise the emotional stakes.
All right. And now that you mentioned the meetings, there's something that your director said that really stuck in my head, that is like, you don't get to know someone like as they really are until they have power. And now you have power as a producer. You get to be in the meetings and have some decisions on the stories. So what did that reveal about yourself, you know, like being able to take decisions instead of just saying yes to what you were told?
I don't know if I'm the best person to ask for the answer of that question. I think Destin is probably the person to ask, but I was very grateful that I was allowed behind the curtain and was allowed to develop the movie so that I felt like we were telling a story that was representative of what the fans were kind of asking for. But you know, when you're in those meetings, Amy Pascal, Kevin Feige, and Destin, Daniel Cretton, they're the boss. You know, those are the guys in charge. I'm just there to suggest ideas and to help develop the character in an authentic way. But there was never any question as to who was, you know, the most powerful people in the room, and it was definitely those three.
And that's one thing really interesting about this movie is that, I mean, right now, Peter is going to be like forgotten, you know, and I think that for the audience, that's a tragedy, like being forgotten and people not remembering who you are. But since you like to stay kind of away from the Hollywood machinery, or, you know, to keep your life more private, I wanted to know, like, if you find yourself connecting with the situation, like, in a different way.
Yeah, I do think there are some similarities between Peter Parker and myself in some respects, especially with what he's going through. But I'm so lucky that I have an amazing support network of friends and family and people that, you know, I've known since I was a teenager. Like, there are people that I work with that I met when I was 16 years old, and I feel like our relationship as friends is the same today as it was then.
Nice.
So I don't necessarily think there's been that much of a change. But for me, telling this story is representative of the kind of young experience for people all around the world. This idea of living this life on a digital platform and showing the world this kind of unauthentic version of yourself to then come home and live the authentic version of yourself, and how dangerous that can be and how much that can have effect on your personal life. So for me, this movie goes beyond just another Spider-Man movie, and it actually has a strong message that I think, you know, is really important for young people.
That's amazing. Thank you so much,
Thank
Tom.
you so much.
Thank you.
Gracias.